today on Bizweek. I'm talking about Dr. Stephen Akintayo. He is Africa's most influential investment coach according to Forbes, and also sits as a member of Forbes Business Council, an invitation-only organization for successful entrepreneurs and business leaders. He's also a serial entrepreneur and CEO of G-Tex Global, a conglomerate company that deals in so much that we'll be getting into a bit later on. But Dr. Stephen Akintayo, thank you so much for
Thank you for having me.
How are you enjoying Zambia so far?
I love it. I love it. I love the food. I love the people, the serenity, the tourism. It's beautiful. I might relocate here. I might.
They get us excited. But we do know this, that Africa is a wealthy continent.
Absolutely.
It's said by a lot of people. And I feel you are in the best position to actually speak on how wealthy Africa really is. How wealthy is Africa?
So I think the wealth is much more aside the natural resources, because oftentimes we talk about wealth in Africa, we're talking about the natural resources, which yes, I mean virtually all the mineral resources are in Africa. The oil, the stones, now we have lithium for batteries and so on. But I think the biggest asset Africa has are the people. We currently have one of the largest, in fact the largest young population in the whole of the world. I just got to know today, chatting with someone, that between the ages of 19 and 23 is about 70% of Africa's population. That's huge. Yes. So the rest of the world is aging. China is aging. US is aging, which is why if you know, as much as we Africans don't have much excitement about ourselves, about what we have, but the rest of the world is looking up to us, is seeing that the workforce, you know, that will change the world is coming from us. The technical skills is coming from us. A lot of our people are well more educated than even the Westerners. You have more Africans having 2-3 degrees, masters, you know, doctors, and so on and so forth. So we are indeed a wealthy nation, and we just need to realize it as a people.
Now, you have spoken on multiple platforms before that Africa does a pretty poor job of selling itself. Why is that usually the case?
I think because somehow, you know, and part of it is media, we are often projecting the negativity. We're also projecting more of our politics more than our business, more than our culture, more than our entertainment. And I think that's, if we could do more in showing what we have. Look at what's happening with our entertainment industry, our music. I mean, there has been nobody that's broken the record Burna Boy just broke in terms of selling out an entire stadium. That's huge, right? We need to push that more. We need to push, of course, as far as I'm concerned, our tourism more. Look at Victoria Falls. I think we haven't done enough marketing of that. We haven't enough. So there's so much opportunities we have. How many places in America can you go and take picture with a lion, right? So these are amazing, incredible things that we have. But I believe strongly that it starts with the media trying to orientate our people to say, yes, we have challenges. Yes, we don't have the budget in Africa. You know what we're going to do with such a person. You know what our media is going to do, right? He literally even stumbled the other day. Imagine that was an African. I mean, we know how we so ridicule the former president of Zimbabwe when he was aging. And you could see how Americans brushed it off and moved on. So there's a need to begin to say, we don't have perfect leaders, but we are Africa. Nobody's going to change this continent. We have to change it. Nobody's going to love us more than we do. Even the so-called people who love us are just coming so for what they want to take. And I love one of the things that happened with Nigeria, where our leadership said, we know you could get this particular mineral resources in Nigeria, but except you provide a plant in Nigeria, you're not going to lift one of this mineral. That's the kind of conversation we need to start having. That's the kind of love we need to start, and then we need to start marketing. And it begins with you and I, saying good things, talking about the positivity. I love Africa. I'm positive about her. I know she will rise. I know 20, 30 years from now, the story will be different.
You speak of people coming in to take what they can.
Yeah.
Do you feel that could be ultimately our downfall, where the outside world understands the potential that Africa has more than the people that actually live on the continent actually do?
Yeah, I agree. So I mean, it's funny. I mean, you give an example of Zambia. So I was in the plane with a British woman. Her husband has a big tourism company here, and in fact she has two sons. One had come with his girlfriend, the other one was on his way. And you saw her talking about how her husband grew up in Africa. This is home for him, and she always enjoyed coming to Zambia and all of that. Now you have the same conversation with an average Zambian man or woman. They say, oh, the man, our politician. How much is dollar to the Zambian currency?
Yeah.
Those are the conversations we begin to have, rather than conversation about some of the other positives. Now, we're not saying we shouldn't be realistic, but what we're saying is that others come here and they're seeing some more positive things than we do, and we have to start seeing inward, looking inward, seeing possibilities, seeing potential, seeing who we can become, what we can become, and begin to talk about it. It's difficult to do, but it's possible. I always give this analogy. If you're a man and you marry a woman, and let's say she has 99, positives, and she has just one weakness, right? Making it 100%. If you decide to start complaining about the one weakness your wife has, give it time, right? The 99 will also become negative. But if your wife has 99 weaknesses but has one positive, and you keep talking about the positive part of your wife, you realize over time you have 100% perfect woman. So the same thing with the nation, the same thing with the continent. If all of us begin to consciously say, I'm going to talk about our food, our people, our music, our resources, our tourism, our women as well, our men as well, right? Positivity about people. I think that over time it becomes, I give a practical example. I live now in Dubai, and it's funny how a lot of the Emiralities, and I've met many of them, I'm yet to see one that has negative comment. Even when I'm confronting some of them with some challenges we face doing business in that part of the world, they still find a way to spin it back to something positive and say, oh, but Dubai is better than the Western world. Dubai is this, Dubai is that. And I later learned that they teach that culture even from primary school. The children are taught to say positive things about United Arab Emirates, to speak about the positivity of the land, and you can see what has happened to them.
Now, we've already brought in the conversation of other people who are away from Africa. What I want to get into now is a pretty touchy topic, colonialism. So for years, you have an Africa that was oppressed, colonial masters ruling over Africans and the like. But even after Africa's freedom, we see people still talk about the effects of colonialism really being there. Now, I'm going to use this term very loosely. Do you think after years of being free from colonialism, Africa still makes colonialism as an excuse for why it may still be lagging behind as opposed to moving forward? Now, I use the term excuse very loosely.
So, I love your questions, by the way. They're really good. They're good. So how we say yes and no? Yes, colonialism is part of why we're where we are. You can't take that away. For example, we love to compare ourselves with, let's say, London or United Kingdom. But we fail to forget that for over 50 years, right? United Kingdom kept exploiting our resources to do roads, to do rail, to do airports, right? To develop that. They don't have any natural resources. The land size isn't that big as well, right? So where was the money they used to develop that part? Where did it come from? Today we talk about America. The human resource, because America is big, right? It was the slaves that built the farms, that built, the roads, that built, I remember, I think was it Michelle Obama or somebody that said, one day she had to say, look, my ancestors built this White House. So we have to face the reality that we were exploited to develop the Western world. Our resources was used. And so if you come here as a Westerner and make us look as if, you don't have good roads, where are we going to get the money from? You don't have, electricity, or you don't have the rail, but you guys took all of that, and you're still taking. And what do I mean by you're still taking? Why will you come to Africa and then you find cocoa and refuse to have a a chocolate factory in Africa, but would prefer to just buy the cocoa, go make your chocolate in your country, and then send it back to us at a more expensive price? It just doesn't make sense. Why will you take our crude oil, go refine it in your country, then come back, sell it to us at a higher price? So much so that it negates the fact that we sold the original crude oil to you. Because when we buy back, we're buying way higher. Why do you want to start taking our lithium right now, okay, to make electric cars, and then come back and sell us electric cars? It's insane. I'm not even against. Why can't you say, what, we will build a plant here to make EV batteries for cars. We will start manufacturing cars here, even though we still take some of your lithium to still go and manufacture for other countries. That's a more fair, sensible way to trade with Africa. But that's not happening yet. So yes, that part is there. No is the mental aspect, where right now we no longer have anybody holding us. But is the similar culture with an elephant. If you see an elephant in a circus, right, they train the elephant to be able to stand on something like this. And what happened was that if you research the training that led to that, was that when the baby elephant that wants to be trained to operate in the circus starts, they tie it down to that. And after some years, even when there's no more chain on his leg, he's just accustomed to be able to stand on that kind of small podium. And the same thing is happening to us in Africa, where the chains are off, the slavery is out, the colonialism is out, but mentally we're still hoping that the colonial masters will come give us money. The colonial masters will come save us. The colonial master will do some magic. And I think it doesn't even make sense to think that way. Another aspect as well is the loan. Africa needs to know that there's nothing wrong with taking loan as a government if the loan is used to build the critical sector. You look at Dubai. What has happened? 2008, Dubai economy crashed, totally crashed. How did Dubai come out of it? Took bigger loan, right? Pay off the old ones, and then continue to run. And today, you can look at how much is coming to Dubai in terms of GDP. It's negating all that loans as well. America is the biggest debtor in the world. So there's nothing really wrong. It's just that the politicians don't need to take the loan and then steal it. But we need to find a way to raise liquidity to develop Africa. That's important. But we need to stop thinking that the issue is the West, because they are no longer here, right? We have to take responsibility for where we are now and begin to develop her. And I think it begins with entrepreneurship. How many of our people are into business? This whole certificate thing, nothing wrong with it, I have as well. But it's just overrated. is no longer valid. People are now starting businesses from their bedrooms, and that revolution needs to start in Africa as well. To say, you don't need to wait for a job. You don't need to wait for a white-collar job. You can sit down and look for somehow to add value, exchange value in exchange for cash. And as soon as we start having businesses erupt, look at what China did. China stopped setting targets for just how many people are graduating from schools, how many people are having degrees, to how many millionaires can we generate. Of course, entrepreneurs as well, not even entertainers. How many entertainers do they have in China? But how many millionaires? So there was a time China had a target of 400 million millionaires. Can you believe that? That is, we want 400 million of our people. That's like twice the size of Nigeria. We want 400 million of such people to be millionaires. That's the kind of conversation we need to start having in Africa. If you have that conversation in Africa, people will say, oh, do you need money? Will you take money to heaven? Right? Yeah. That has to change, because money is a tool for good things. If your two poor people can't help themselves, right? If you have a relative that is dying of cancer right now, right? It's not just your love they need at that point. They need a lot of money to do chemotherapy, and it's not cheap. So two poor people can't help themselves. There's a lot of good that only money can do. And we have to begin to change the mindset of people from thinking money is bad, money makes you arrogant. I think money takes the image of the owner. If you are arrogant, you have more money, you'll be more arrogant. You know, money is just an imitator. Money just magnifies what already exists. So nothing wrong with making money. And we need to begin to have that conversation. We want to raise how many millionaires in Africa? We want to raise how many entrepreneurs in Africa? We want these entrepreneurs to generate jobs, to build, to partner with government, to provide infrastructure. That is the important conversation, and we can do it. And we don't need to wait for the Western world to do that.
Now, you brought in a very critical point, which is what I want to get into now, which is the mental side of things. Now, other people would argue that the colonial masters, in this sense, have had the claws deep in Africa simply because they targeted areas such as school. Do you, in your opinion, think that school right now in Africa, the education system in Africa, still remains a big player when it comes to us not fully understanding the potential we have to create wealth, and still feeling that we need to be in school, get a degree, get a master's degree for us to be able to have a good living?
I'm smiling because all your question is a yes and no question. Because if I say yes, I'm really running into trouble, right? So again, yes and no. Yes, in the sense that the way the curriculum is structured, okay, we discover River Niger, Mongo Park. Come on, give me a break. Give me a break. Africans have been living there for centuries. So suddenly, who discovered, you know,
the Victoria
Falls? The living story. Come on. That's ridiculous. But that's part of that curriculum that's wrong. That doesn't make sense. So yes, in that sense. However, no, in the sense that why didn't we change the curriculum? Right? The British curriculum could be adjusted. China is doing that. China is teaching their people more in mathematics, in coding, because they realized that that was more needed into the future. You know, so we could have adjusted our curriculum to reflect where the world is going. Why are we not teaching about money in schools? If you look at African culture, the subject of money is ingrained from our stories that parents tell their children when they were young under the mango tree. Right? So let's get back to what's good about us. Because what they did, for you to colonize a particular location, you have to convince them that what all their cultures and principles is bad. And truly that's wrong, because not all is bad. Some maybe can be improved on, but some are really good. And so you go through all African stories, all African tales, you will see that ingrained were values about integrity, were values about being a risk taker, even though in reality, colonialism made us to be more reserved and not wanting to take risks in terms of business. And in fact, I always say this, that your current bank balance is a function of your risk level, right? So if you hate what's in your bank account right now, all you need to do is to increase your risk level. Start taking more risk, and you begin to love what's in your account. But these are ingrained in our African stories and cultures. Subject of money, subject of being prudent with money, right? But go to the British curriculum or French curriculum or whatever curriculum they give you, those things are out, right?
Over about 7 months ago, you had a TEDx talk, and in that talk you said,
you did your research.
You
right?
and I.
Who is this guy?
In your talk that you and I need to be wealthy if we are to change Africa and improve Africa. And you said what you just said now a couple of minutes ago, is that two poor people can't build Africa and won't go any further that way. Is that truly the way we'll be able to push this country
forward? It is, because I think part of the strategy before the end of colonialism is to convince Africans that they need to remain poor, right? Religion played a part of that. But what we fail to realize is that, is Roman Catholic, for example, poor? I mean, a religion was so powerful that they had their own country inside a country, right? That they literally give certain people loan. Some people don't understand how the Roman Catholic work. That's a war power, practically. How do you think the Pope is that powerful? So, but somehow the version of Christianity that we accepted in Africa was that you needed to be poor to be holy. That's nonsense, right? That poverty somehow makes you, quite righteous, and if you have too much money, you're not going to love God. That's nonsense, because you can't even preach the gospel without money. So, for me, I think that the wrong narrative has been sold. It's time to start selling the right narrative. You need money to do good. Money is the vehicle for good gospel. Money is needed for anything good. To develop was open. When the hotel is open, how many more people will be employed? So we need to start seeing wealth, entrepreneurship from the perspective of job creation, from the perspective of being able to remove poverty, right? I mean, impromptu, one of my hosts here said, oh, there's an orphanage. We know you love to do charity stuff. And, went to this school. They take in orphans and, school them. Some of them are one mother is dead or father is dead or both are dead. They don't house them, but they provide education and food, right? And right there, immediately, I was able to make a token donation and hoping to do a lot more. I can't do that if I'm poor. I will go there and smile, but what those kids need, because my host told me a week ago, the people running it had to call to say, there's no food, we need this, we need that. So I can't help if I'm poor. So we have to get back to that conversation. Wealth is important. Of course, there's the need for moderacy. There's a need for values. There's a need for people building wealth to know that money doesn't make you better than others. There's a need to let people know that, money can buy things that will make you happy. But in the long run, it is genuine interaction like what we're having here that determine those who really love you, right? Versus those who just are coming around you because you're wealthy. And so the true respect that you desire will not come just you have money. I mean, imagine I'm here and we're having this interview and I'm empty-headed, right? Yeah. So it will just be one rich fool that you have interviewed in your life, right? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, but if you love me by 3%, after this interview, I'm sure it will go more.
Yes.
So, and that's what we need to begin to educate our people about, that yes, money is good, but it shouldn't make you, because I see the way so-called rich people in Africa behave. It's ridiculous, right? It's just insane. And it's because when you research some of these people deep down, right, there was no moving from 0 to hero. I started my business with $10, and I know what it means to start from zero and move up, right? Some people couldn't start from zero because maybe their parents were wealthy, and so they were starting from $1 billion day one, right? And all that connection back up. Some people were starting from maybe $100 million because there was a contract given by some minister or president that they know. So that then affects their sense of judgment, right? Where their lifestyle, their attitude gets a lot of Africans to say, if this is what money makes people do, I don't want to be rich. But those people are not your ideal entrepreneurs, right? The ideal entrepreneur is the guy who's been able to turn, $10, right, to $1,000, or $1,000 to $1 million. That's your ideal entrepreneur, and that's part of the movement that we're doing. That's why the book was important to me. That's why the conversation around teaching and mentorship was important to me, because I realized that we can keep flogging our politicians like no tomorrow, but in reality, our countries are broke. Our countries don't have money. Our countries are really indebted. And because they need to keep paying loan, they don't even have enough liquidity to really develop and do capital projects. And the liquidity will come when there are more businesses, because those businesses will pay tax.
Yes.
With those tax, you can do a lot more. And that, for me, is really what we need to start saying.
Author, serial entrepreneur, speaker. Dr. Akintayo, it's been a pleasure speaking to you. Thank you so much for making
Thank
the
you
time.
for having me. This has been one of my best interviews in my life. I love